Shalom, shalom, it's the brother Kadash. All praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai.
My name is Rich Hoffman. For the last 25 years, I've been an IT specialist working for the Army Materiel Command. And so I'm largely doing cybersecurity. I'm doing a whole lot of other things with that, enterprise architecture. I've been investigating UFOs since 1964. And if you do your math, that's 56 years. And I've basically served in many roles as the director of investigations for organizations. We have our own organization called the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, and we started that in 2017. We started off as just a team. We were not an organization at the time, and we called ourselves basically SCU, Scientific Coalition for Ufology. We have about 20 PhDs that are on board, and they're all across the board in terms of the fields that they're in. And right now we're 100 strong. And most of these people are scientists, researchers, and we're doing other kinds of studies. We're creating our own peer review process, and we're also devising our own journal. We've now looked at the physics of the entire thing, that whole encounter, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. We don't get into conspiracy theories. We don't get into all this other stuff. We look for scientific data. And so we're starting to see that the physicists are coming on board. We're getting, all different kinds of degrees, and it's an exciting time for us. So let me show you this. This is a video that was taken with a thermal camera. Scientists want data. And so it's not going to be where we're going to go look at something where some lone civilian just says, well, I saw a light go across the sky. We're actually looking at cases where there's additional data. This is, of course, at 9 o'clock in the evening. So what we got from a pilot and the flight crew in Puerto Rico, we all had to sign non-disclosure agreements saying that we wouldn't talk about it. And so we got a 3-minute and 54-second video of an object. Here's the airport where you now see the object coming in. By the way, we actually caught it on radar first. And at that point in time, a Customs Border Protection aircraft was taking off. And that was about 9:16 p.m. So it was already nighttime. They had just taken off, and they contacted the control tower because they said, well, I thought you said that we were cleared for takeoff. And what is this object that's up here that's coming toward the airport? And so they basically watched and tracked and filmed that object for 3 minutes and 54 seconds. It makes a loop around the airport, and it then goes into the water. It hit the water at about 109 miles per hour. And then it pops up out of the water, and it splits into two identical objects, which have different radar signatures. So we questioned it at first the source. We actually took a look at the radar, and we confirmed it matched all of the telemetry that you see on the actual screen. So we ruled out fakery at that point because we now have confirmed that everything about it was accurate. We ruled out that it wasn't a balloon. We attempted to try to identify if there were birds, you could match up to this. And there's no birds that fly the speeds that we're talking about, and they don't split into two. So that's, again, going back to a credible source where the data all matches up very nicely.
Second Maccabees chapter 10, starting at verse 29. But when the battle waxed strong, there appeared unto the enemies from heaven 5 comely men upon horses, with bridles of gold, and 2 of them led the Jews, and took Maccabees between them, and covered him on every side with their weapons, and kept him safe, but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies, so that being confounded with blindness and full of trouble, they were killed. And there were slain of footmen 20,500, 600 horsemen. So we know it ain't talking about literal horses as today, horses as animals, that's shooting out lightnings and arrows. It's talking about the so-called UFOs, chariots, because the same way you ride on the back of a horse, the angels are riding on these chariots. Another account. Second Maccabees chapter 5, verse 1. About the same time, Antiochus prepared his second voyage into Egypt. And then it happened that through all the city, for the space almost of 40 days, there were seen horsemen running in the air, which you would call today a UFO, but we know it's the chariots, and clothed in gold, and armed with lances like a band of soldiers, and the troops of horsemen in array, encountering and running one against another with shaking of shields and multitude of spikes and drawing of swords and casting of darts and glittering of gold ornaments and harness of all sorts. So he's trying to explain this the best way he can. But today we have a little bit more knowledge of what these things would be considered UFOs. You know, this was a space of almost 40 days. These horsemen could be seen running through the sky. We know horse can't run. Horse as animals can't run through the sky. So what is this talking about? This is talking about the chariots, you know. This is Zechariah chapter 5, starting at verse 1. Then I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roe. Oh, he seen a flying roe. So imagine a roe, but flying. And he said unto me, what seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roe. So he's saying, look, I see a flying roe. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof is 10 cubits. So he breaking it down. Then said he unto me, this is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off as on this side according to it, and everyone that sweareth shall be cut off as on this side according to it. So it's a curse because they come to fight. Like in Second Maccabees, they was drawing swords, shooting lightnings, you know, kind of like a UFO. Like if you watch Independence Day, the UFOs were shooting lightnings out of them, beams and stuff like that. But the thing is, back in Second Maccabees chapter 5, you go to verse 1, it says, about the same time Antiochus. So you could look up and see that Antiochus was a real man. Go type Antiochus, Antiochus, on Google and look up the information about Antiochus, that he really existed. So the Bible is giving you real accounts of things that really happened. You could trace it back to Antiochus really being alive, really existing, being a king, and you could go look up some research of some of the things he went through, and look up UFOs being seen in the sky for 40 days around the time of Antiochus. Just do your research and you'll find it. So these are real accounts that could be traced back and could be verified. Salvation to the elect. Shalom.